false identity. It lies within all of us. It follows us like our own shadows that never left us. This identity that is created by ourselves, strangely, does not exist at all. So it is going to be a very difficult topic to describe and talk about, but then, the benefits of realizing it, is tremendous to anyone. So, I'm going to do as best as possible to discuss about it. To describe it, let's look at the two words, false, and identity. The word, false, is relatively easy to interpret, but it has to be put into context, before we know how it contributes to the meaning of this topic. Identity, in common understanding, is who a person is, name of a person, and qualities that make an individual different from others. So when put together, false identity means that the makeup of a being, or these qualities, when come together in a body, has created an identity, which is not true, or in a better phrase, does not exist at all. By saying it does not exist at all, is also not true entirely. This identity comes to existence only as a mental construct, a mind construct, or a concept made up by the mind. Hence, there are other familiar names given to it, such as the illusory self, the egoic self, or the non-existential self. How does this mental construct arise? To begin this, let's take a look at what this false identity, or I, is made up of, or what components do this I have. We all have a physical body, thoughts, feelings, perceptions and consciousness. 5 components altogether, 1 form and the other 4 are formless. Physical body, thoughts and feelings are easy to understand since physical body is something we can see and use. Thoughts and feelings are something we experience more intensely compared to perceptions and consciousness. Perceptions and consciousness are more subtle in a sense. They are like background workers and they work continuously, unlike thoughts and feelings. That is why there is another description: they are like a continuous stream. Perceptions can be divided into 2. 1. How we perceive our external world. For example, with our eyes, we perceive that there is an object at a certain distance. This is perception at the basic level. At a deeper level, it is about how our beliefs are formed. I perceive, look at, understand or make deductions from a piece of news in a certain way while you perceive it in another way. Lastly, consciousness, which itself, is a continuous awareness or knowing. This knowing is different from perception. Conscious is knowing presence while perception is understanding a certain matter. So consciousness knows this perception as presence, knows this feeling arises, knows this thought. However, perception cannot exist without consciousness since there is nothing to know its existence. This does not mean consciousness is bigger than perceptions, thoughts or feelings, because this is about how and what their functions are. Now, having known this, what has this got to do with false identity? These components have a part to play in this false identity, albeit in varying degree of strength and function. Consciousness is aware of the existence of the other 4 components and, through wrong perception or an untrained perception, it perceives an I, or me, through these components. So perception perceives an I, and consciousness is aware of this perception of I. And it thinks that it can fully control body movements, how it can think, feel and perceive independently. So there arises a concept of I, who thinks that one is able to do all these independently and freely, and controls life situations. Another factor that fuels perception to perceive an I is through conditioning by the external world. Perception perceives that the existence of I is natural, since from birth, parents taught them so. People who were close also taught the same way. Growing up, through the senses, especially through seeing and hearing, everyone else perceives and thinks the same way, behaving and acting as though there is an I. So through such conditioning, the existence of I becomes naturally imbued to the mind. There are many other countless ways that this false identity is being reinforced, which I will not go through them now, since this is an introductory post. In the following videos with regards to this theme, I will describe the characteristics of this false identity, how to identify it, how to dissolve it, and many more. An important thing to note is that this topic about false identity is all experiential knowledge, and it is all happening within each of us. As such, there are no formulas, no one methodology that can fully describe what the false identity is and how to dissolve it. It is as best that words are merely pointers or signposts that enables each one of us to discover and dissolve this false identity. So in this series of videos, please do not take them as knowledge to be collected and to heighten one's well of intelligence, or getting into arguments about right and wrong. They are meant to be signposts to point to what each of us should dissolve because it is the root of sufferings. Once this false identity is dissolved, true joy, happiness and peace will be naturally experienced. I would like to hear from you, comments and/or questions regarding this topic. Please leave them in the comment section and I will read them, and if possible, I will try to share my perspectives and probably share them in the later posts. Thank you.